Got Ryan Cantor on the line from TigerNet, breaking down Clemson football as we look at the wide receiver position here at the Voice of College Football. If you enjoy the content, hit the like button, hit the bell for the notifications once you've subscribed as well. That way you know when we're going live. Justin Ross is the guy, obviously, everyone's looking forward to seeing return to the football field in 2021. This is the position at Clemson, arguably the best position in college football over the last decade at wide receiver. And again, Justin Ross being the guy.
Yeah, missing Justin Ross last year, kind of an underrated negative impact to the season. It happened before the year started, so it's easy to overlook it and just sort of move on to the receiving core that was there at the start of the year, and you know they had their injuries too, which we'll talk about with Ladson and Ngata being hurt. But the injury that was the biggest was Justin Ross for the entire year. It certainly reminds me of Mike Williams. Missed 2015. Tigers fell just short of the national championship. Him missing that season was part of the reason he comes back for 2016, puts the Tigers offense over the top. They win that first championship of the Sweeney era. Feels a little bit like that. Obviously, that's sort of a best case scenario there. But Ross was just spectacular. His first 2 years had over 1,800 receiving yards and 17 touchdowns. He's practicing. He's still no contact for now, but all signs seem to be go. So if he's back, that's immediately a big boon for the Tigers receiving core.
When it comes to Ngata and Ladson, what I go back to, Ryan, as soon as I hear those two players' names, I go back to watching the spring game, their freshman season, and listening to Dabo Swinney talk to ESPN concerning that he didn't know that he had ever recruited two wide receivers or many position players that were as knowledgeable about their position and understanding of the college game and as mature as those two players were coming in as freshmen. And it's got to be time for them to step up.
Yeah, I mean, with a lot of these taller, highly recruited wide receivers like a T. Higgins, they're gone after 3 years. Well, these two have been here for 3 years. Both of them last year was totally marred by injuries, COVID, quarantines and protocol and all that. So the year was really funky for them. Again, like with many sports, when you're trying to project and look back at last year, you sort of have to take a lot of that of 2020 with a grain of salt. But yeah, I mean, it's been 3 years and they haven't, or it's been 2 years now, and they haven't done a lot on the field. So I think it's a big year for both of them. I was really impressed with Ladson's upside. His speed and size combo, I think, gives him huge upside. But he's got to avoid drops. He had some problems with dropping sort of the easy ones and making highlight reel catches last season. But the main thing for them is just staying healthy. If they could stay healthy and Justin Ross is back and healthy, that's a heck of a trio. And then there's several other players and some big freshmen too.
Yeah, don't want to discount what Cornell Powell contributed last year, coming out of nowhere, seemingly for a lot of people, in regards to being on campus for a long time. And then finally, as a senior, he steps up with 53 catches and 7 touchdowns. And Amari Rogers obviously caught 77 with 7 touchdowns. So how do you see their losses playing out? Obviously, Ngata and Ladson are the two main contributors to step in there.
Yeah, I mean, replacing Amari Rogers is certainly tough. And what Cornell Powell did, particularly over the second half of the season, he got a lot of talk about really stepping up sort of entering the year. And then the first about half of the year didn't do a whole lot. And it seemed all the talk seemed pretty empty. And then he just really blew up. He also had great chemistry with DJ Uiagalelei when he started those two games with Trevor Lawrence being out. So he really blew up. So yes, replacing them will be tough, but again, it goes back to health. If Justin Ross is back and healthy, that's a huge piece. That it's like getting a third year 5-star, an already experienced. So I think that does a lot of the work to replace them. And then you have Ladson, you have Ngata. Again, wild cards a bit with health. We haven't seen him healthy and on the field. So I think they could be replaced, and I think the wide receiver group can be better. You also have Ajo, who's a sophomore now. He's a Canadian from up near Calgary. Didn't do a whole lot last year, but he had I think it was against Georgia Tech, but regardless, he had like 2 catches, and one of them you just saw his athleticism. We heard about it in practice reports and whatnot, but he's a real raw athlete, and with a year of experience, maybe he's ready to break out. You have Brandon Spector, a slot receiver. They used him sometimes over EJ Williams, who I'm extremely high on because Spector was good in blocking. So you've got some depth there. I think the Tigers are very well positioned to replace the guys that are losing it in the position.
Also, the losses of Amari Rogers, 77 catches, 7 touchdowns. Cornell Powell, a guy that outside of Clemson circles wasn't really much of a factor or a conversation piece prior to his senior season. Then he blew up with 53 catches, 7 touchdowns. So in addition to the 3 that we discussed, anybody else we should be looking for?
Yeah, one guy I'm really excited about is EJ Williams, who's a true freshman last year, so he's a rising sophomore. He got more and more snaps and looks as the year went on. Later in the year, he made a one-handed catch that just seemed identical to the Justin Ross catch in the 2018 season national championship game, and he's from Phoenix City, Alabama, same hometown as Justin Ross. So a good comp, both by coincidence and actually playing style, which is sort of funny. I'm really high on him. Then you have Brandon Spector, who's a slot receiver. He wears the number 13, the Renfro number. It's a classic number. We're still waiting for him to really make a bigger splash. He was fine last year. They used him at times when they wanted to have someone who could pass block or I guess I should say run block. But I think he has an opportunity to step up. Ajo is another one. He's from up near Calgary in Canada. Didn't play a ton last year, but tons of athleticism, a lot of upside. I don't know if he's ready for that breakout season, but he's got a ton of potential in him. I think folks are very excited about him. And then just a couple freshmen coming in that I think could make an impact. Dakari Collins and Bo Collins, no relation, are big recruits. Bo is actually the former teammate of quarterback DJ Uiagalelei, so it'll be interesting to see if there's any sort of pre-worked chemistry there. And then Troy Stellato is a slot receiver, so add some depth to that position, which should be interesting. So I think with them all, you have a really talented and deep receiving room. Getting Ross back may be the biggest piece of it, but obviously they lose Amari and Cornell Powell, as you mentioned, but I think the pieces are there to replace them adequately, but also potentially be better at the position.
Bo Collins, the 12th rated wide receiver in the class of 2021, according to the 247 Sports Composite. Dakari on number 32. Spector caught 16 last year, and EJ Williams did contribute pretty well. 24 catches, 13 yards per catch, and a couple touchdowns.